To order at 6:34 p.m. We'll rise and have Diane Cinto lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to make some preliminary comments, maybe take some questions before I turn it over to Ken. And as we usually do, we will go through each category in the budget one at a time. And tonight we will be taking a vote on each item. So first of all, a budget is a snapshot in time. Now, where are we right now? Next week might be different. As we move through a year, we adjust. So tonight we are going to go on the information that we have at this time. And remember, we're going to vote on this at least one more time. And I'm going to just start off by saying to our friends at the Board of Ed that the last legal possible date for the state to take any action is May 8th. We're not going to adopt our budget until May 15th. So we're going to have 100% certainty when we vote how much money will be coming to the borough from the state of Connecticut. We have at this time direct communication with the Speaker of the House, who tells me that we are more than likely going to get what we want. There is a small chance we could get somewhat less. He said there's also a small chance we could get somewhat more. But the consensus from the information we're getting is that they will be honoring the 2-year budget plan that the state adopted. So today, what's the date?
22nd.
April 22 at 6:40. That's our snapshot in time. Now, when we make a budget, every year we have challenges. And very simply stated, the challenge is that no one wants to pay more taxes and everyone wants more services. So that's true every year. Now, what's a little different this year is that we're in year 2 of a 3-year phase-in. And we have projected mill rates, and we've made a lot of assumptions when we made those. And, you know, for the most part, we are, I'm going to say really on target with all of our assumptions. The only thing that changed a little was the raises for the teachers, although well-deserved, and were higher than we anticipated when we made the budget. It's, approaching $1 million per year. So we're a little off in our calculation there. But notwithstanding that, just to give you a starting point, where we are right now with the budget that we discussed at our last meeting, with some proposed changes that I made on the town side and the Board of Ed side, 300,000 each, would result in a mill rate of 41.79. So that's pretty close to the number that was projected. If we could cut off another $70,000, we would be almost exactly what we projected. So, we're pretty close to what we projected. Now, when we were here last time, I said that I would propose an additional $300,000 in cuts on the town side. And I did, and they are all in the capital budget. So I'm going to tell you what they are. And then when we get to that item, we can discuss them in more detail. So saying it another way, what you're going to see tonight is what you saw the last time, except the capital budget will be reduced by $300,000, with the changes being, number one, on page 3 of 6, we accepted the recommendation of Walter Seaman from Fire to defer the $12,800 item, which we will procure next year. So that's the first change. The second change is on page 4, where, going against my logic, my brain, and my heart, I reduced street paving from $1,250,000 to $1,190,000. I reduced sidewalk replacement from $290,000 to $250,000. On page 5, I deferred improvements at Osborne Field to the 100,000 to the next fiscal year, 25-26. And on page 6, I reduced contractual sewer work from 130 to 30. The number is not going to go down, but recommending that we take $100,000 from our sewer connection fee account for that project. So other than those changes to the capital budget, on the borough side, everything that you see tonight should be exactly the same as what we went over last time and in most of our previous sessions. On the Board of Ed side, we don't have the right to tell them what to do, so whatever reduction there would be totally up to the Board of Ed to determine. So that's the starting point. I'll also say that I know that there was some concern, well, what happens if, things go wrong? Well, we do have contingency plans. First of all, we have a contingency budget of $1,100,000 on our side, which in my 8.5 years as mayor, I've never spent 5 cents. I would prefer that I never spend 5 cents. But if something horrific happened and we needed it for the Board of Ed, we could look there. We are also implementing a new, I say we are, I'm presenting to the Burgesses a new capital plan where we are going to defer capital purchases of non-emergency items and or items that are not approved by me until later in the year, so that we can always defer them to the next year if we're running into trouble in the second half of the year. And last but not least, as a person who's managed budgets my entire life, if we have a problem, it becomes my job to find a solution, and we will. So I have no fears going into the year that we will not be able to take care of all of our needs. So I'm going to stop there and see if we have any questions about that. And then from there, we can go into the, each item.
Any questions?
We'll be addressing both capital later.
Yeah, well, it's going to come up when we get to it. Yep.
Just to clarify, I think what you said last week, the reference to the sidewalks and the paving, with the work that we're actually doing downtown, we're still gonna be above the number that you.
So let's back up. None of that money's in the budget. Everything,
That's what I mean.
so
We're
right,
still above.
no,
what we
well,
talked about.
it's a good point. What you see right now, Northern Church Street is a separate grant,
Mhm.
community connectivity. What's happening on Maple and Church is, our infrastructure, ARPA money, and some money from our tax incremental financing district. The hub project is Connecticut Community Challenges plus TIF. Rubber Avenue is lots of money. So it's all state and federal money. So one of the reasons I felt okay with reducing paving is, even though we're reducing it, there's gonna be more paving than ever based on those projects.
We're well above the figure that you originally had budgeted.
Well, no, we're below what I wanted to budget,
Right.
but we're okay.
But overall, for the total amount of money that's being spent on paving and sidewalks is still above what we budgeted, even though it's not our money.
I would just say it's not even in our budget, so you don't even have to count it.
I know what you mean.
Mayor, how will it impact our 5-year plan we currently have in place for paving? It's like already public, we're in the latter half of the 5-year plan, but
Right, so, I'm gonna say for next year, we'll be able to do 90% and maybe 100%. But, just like anything else, if we ever hit a crisis, anything could change. But the plan would be to hit at least 90% and to try for 100%. I always try for 100%. All right, any other questions? All right. So at this time, on behalf of the Borough of Naugatuck, it's my honor and privilege to turn the meeting over to Finance Board Chairman Ken Hess.
Thank you, Wayne. So before we get started, one thing I want to mention, I do a lot of reading. I was reading an article about a town and their budget. And their 3 chief complaints were the mill rate was too high, the roads were horrible, and we spent too much in education. It was in the Naugatuck Daily News, April 1925. Just the numbers change. That's changed. James Higgins is on his way in. Yeah, Rocky was in the meeting. James Higgins on the way in. Until he gets here, Charlie's going to read each motion. We're going to introduce each department line by line. And with the consensus that we have from last week, if there's going to be a change in the department, we need to vote that down and then re-vote it, new motion with the new figure. Okay, so Charlie?
okay, a motion that the administrative budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $339,235.
Okay, so Diane, I ask you to second every motion.
Okay.
We'll just keep it
Sure.
easy.
Make it easy,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for administrative as presented last week. Any comments, Diane?
The $1,400 for petition verification. I mean, I know it's a little, but you know what, if we could get, 20 of these little ones, there's your 20,000. I mean, we haven't had a petition knock on wood in quite a while. I think this is something I think we can absorb it somewhere else and just take it out of the budget.
I'm not against taking it out. I just don't, I believe a little bit in comments, so we're on a good streak, I don't want to suggest it, but, I mean, there's no way to know whether
Right.
anyone will challenge the budget,
Right, but,
so.
like I said, knock on wood, it hasn't been.
All right, so it's, well, before we take it out, let's see if we're
Yeah.
gonna have a consensus.
I agree with Diane. I think knocking out little things here and there where we can, is gonna add up to a bigger number that we need.
on the other hand, we may get an idea of where we're going after the public hearing, and we can always take it out. There's a lot of talk after the public hearing on.
Can you explain a little what that is? the first-
Yeah, so if, well, we adopt the budget, the taxpayers have a certain amount of time to challenge it if they get enough signatures on a petition. So, it hasn't happened in, I don't know, 8 years. But I'll say 4 or 5 years preceding that, it happened every year. So, and if it happens, there are costs involved in counting the signatures. And it's not a lot, but it's 1,400.
They have to verify every person who signed it. Is a resident of Naugatuck.
Mickey Mouse signs a lot of petitions. Seriously, they gotta verify each signature. That's accurate.
So before, let me say this. Why don't you say it? The people that want to take it out, just raise their hands before we
So-
vote.
We have a feeling to take it out before we bring up a motion to change it. Just Diane and Megan. Yeah, we can always discuss it again.
Yeah.
Or, do final
I
presentation.
think Rocky has a good point, though.
What's that?
Let's wait and see,
Yeah,
what,
wait at the
count
referendum.
number of pitchforks they found. Well, hearing.
We can always adjust it then too. Thank you.
All right, so we already have a motion on the table.
Okay, and second. All in favor as presented?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, okay.
2 opposed.
No,
Diane.
it's great. I heard somebody.
Oh, okay.
Bob said aye. He was late.
Bob Neff?
Yeah, I think he said aye.
Bob, did you say aye?
I said aye to approve.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
all right.
Okay.
Charlie?
All right, motion that the town hall building budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $153,068.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the budget as presented? It's a $13,510 increase. All in payroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, next.
Motion that the townwide activity budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $2,801,692.
Second.
Second. For discussion, the majority of that increase was the consolidation of the building maintenance accounts from various departments into one line item with a corresponding reduction in each department. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Motion that the Department of Finance budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $840,770.
Second.
Again, that increase was all primarily regular payroll. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried.
Motion that the probate court budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $76,018.
Okay, and, primarily, this was the first year we had full accounting for the new building. The $1,400 increase from previous year. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Motion that the elections budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $266,620.
Second.
And the majority of that increase was due to elections payroll with the early voting, presidential primaries and presidential election coming up for $105,000 increase. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Opposed by Diane. Oh, I'm writing it down.
Nancy, did you get that? I opposed.
Nancy, you have that?
Yes, thank you. I got it. Thank you.
Nancy's on Zoom.
Oh, James is on Zoom. Okay. I had him promoted to the panelist. So.
Motion that the tax department budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $285,680.
Second.
Primarily an increase in payroll with reductions in several other accounts for $16,900 increase. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Motion that the property assessment budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $464,753.
Diane seconds.
Oh, second, sorry.
Okay, okay. And the budget primarily was an increase in payroll, was offset by reductions in some other accounts for net increase of $8,143. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, we have a question.
Question.
Car allowance. Anybody know where that car allowance goes to? I know it's a small amount.
Where is that now?
because it says
Under
that
property
has a car,
assessment.
And they have another.
Believe that was reimbursement for personal use, but I'm not positive.
Where is it? Property assessment?
Yeah.
They have a vehicle for that department,
Yeah.
plus the assessor has the vehicle assigned.
Is Allison on? Allison?
Allison would have to answer it.
Now, I don't know if all the people in the department.
Yep.
You know, do it.
I'm here.
Hi, Allison. Can you answer a question for us?
Yes. If another employee needs to use their vehicle, we need to give them mileage reimbursement. And, they do have 2 cars, but often when they're busy in different times of the year, we have to give them, mileage reimbursement for the use of their own vehicle.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Any other questions on property assessment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion that the building inspector budget be accepted as presented at $314,444.
Second,
Again, major increases mostly to payroll with some offsets and some reductions, total increase of $27,519. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the information technology budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $1,199,106.
second,
The increase of $57,000, primarily maintenance contracts with software. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the town clerk budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $219,163.
Diane?
Second. Use your buzzer, Diane. Okay, primarily increase, and for most of these is regular payroll of increase of $9,700 overall. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the Naugatuck Event Center budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $130,500.
second,
Okay, that's a flat funded from previous years. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Don't say.
Abstain, okay. Nancy, you get that? Wayne abstained?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Motion that the Naugatuck Economic Development Corporation budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $92,000.
second,
And that is also flat funded from previous years. We just came out of a very informative NEDC meeting. There's a lot of good stuff happening. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the land use budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $212,239.
second,
Okay, $29,000 increase, half of that being regular payroll and then blight remediation. That was an increase of $29,000 total. Diane,
the, question I had a note in here that white was going to be removed.
What is,
White was going
let's
to be.
relocate. It's in another section.
But it's still in land use.
Oh, land use.
Yeah,
No, it's supposed to be. Get Allison on there.
Allison, you still there?
It's all in one place.
It was decided in the last meeting to keep it, in land use, and that amount is for blight. And, I think
Well,
there was,
that's for hoarding, blight,
Yeah.
and a whole host of things. So the number is reduced, but are not reduced this time, reduced in prior discussions. But we apparently decided to keep it in land use.
Okay, and I also see the number went from 4,000 to 12,000, because originally in our book, it was 4,000, and now it's 16,000.
Well, but it's reduced because it was high, there was 30,000 for hoarding. So the 30,000 was reduced and the hoarding number is now here. So it appears to be an increase here, but there are reductions greater than that in other areas. But that's something we did, I'll say, 2 or 3 times ago.
correct.
I was here for this meeting, this original meeting, so that's why I was, asking about the blight. First, I had to know that it was gonna be removed, and then it went from 4 to 12, so.
Well, hoarding went from 30 to 12, I think, and 12 and 4 is 16, but something like that.
Yeah, because hoarding, and technically hoarding isn't in here, so, okay. All right, thank you.
Plus, we also get some reimbursement on some of those items. So, okay, so we have a motion on the floor and seconded for land use. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the legal department budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $330,000.
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion that the estimated wage increases be accepted as presented in the amount of $160,182.
second,
And this is actually a reduction from last year. There's only one union contract in negotiation right now. And that's just the estimated wages. So, any other questions? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the human resources budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $125,514.
second,
That primary increase is due to third-party testing from outside agencies based on police, fire, promotional exams that are anticipated. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Ready? Motion that the police department budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $8,503,831.
second.
Second. Okay.
No, I was.
Okay.
Sorry.
The vast majority of that, 254,000 is payroll increases, but is also offset by reductions in other accounts for a total increase of $250,000. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the fire department budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $5,015,202.
Second,
It's unique, the reduction of $116. This is due to the building maintenance account being moved out and that the current union contracts are under negotiation, so we did not include wages in this, wage increases in this year's budget. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the animal control budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $35,466.
second,
Okay, this was an increase of 35,000, primarily payroll with some offset in non-reduction.
Actually, I need to change the motion.
Okay,
Yep,
okay.
I missed something there. A whole bunch of zeros. Let's try this again.
Okay,
Withdraw the motion.
okay, withdrew.
Motion that the animal control budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $147,172.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so motion carries, yeah.
Motion that the Office of Emergency Management, Local Emergency Planning Committee, NEMAC budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $134,286.
Second.
Any discussion? Fran has some comments on this one.
I line item for maintenance of generators. Due to combining the different contracts for generator maintenance for all buildings, I see a $5,000 reduction in that, so that's what the 15,000 instead of 20,000. And I'm also looking for an additional $530 reduction on the miscellaneous expenditures, our code red system. We negotiated a new contract with them recently, and they're coming in at $530 less per year based on a 3-year contract. And not only is it $530 less per year based on what we're paying now, but it's an upgraded version to an unlimited plan, which is actually, if we went to that without the renegotiation, it would be $1,500 more per year for 3 years, but now it's gonna be $530 less per year, so there's an additional $530. I wanna take now of the miscellaneous expenditures.
So what I'd like to do is, we'll vote on the motion as presented. If we're in favor of that reduction, we'll vote it down and then reintroduce a motion with the new figure.
Yep, you have the new figure, Sean?
I have it,
You got it? What is the figure?
128,756.
One again?
128.
Yep.
756.
It's a reduction.
Yes. Yep. It's the motion on the floor for the budget is presented at 134,286. All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion is denied.
Motion that the Office of Emergency Management and Local Emergency Planning Committee, NEMAC budget be accepted at $128,756.
Second.
Any discussion? Nice work on that, Fran. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? Motion carries.
Now, here we go. So it's listed as general operations.
East Side Fire Station.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just looking at got a spreadsheet here. Okay, motion that the East Side Fire Station budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $1,900.
Second.
And this is a $5,000 reduction, but that's due to building maintenance being transferred to a townwide account. So basically, it's flat funded from last year. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion that the Safety Patrol budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $3,000.
Second.
And that's flat funded from last year.
And that goes, that's actually the safety control / cert.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the Fire Police budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $33,500.
Second.
Okay, that is an increase of 18,500. I believe you were buying radios, portable radios with that.
So the plus things are right.
Those were reduced. Those were taken out last month. Yes. Any other discussion? Any further question? I'm not sure how many. They're expensive. It's several $1,000s each. I think Assistant Chief has a comment on that.
We've been looking for 3. That could be wrong. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So $5,000 each.
Although The new ones we're looking for the fire departments are $8,000 to $10,000 each. It's, we'll have a discussion offline about that. They're extremely expensive. A motion on the floor and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the social services budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $34,527.
That's an increase. Yeah, it's an increase of $2,794. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the youth services budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $45,906.
Second,
That was an increase of $17,000, 20,000 of that for a diversion program, offset by 3,000 reduction in building. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the Water Pollution Control Authority budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $4,290,710.
second,
And it's an overall increase of $118,955. Of course, we know that we get more than that back from them. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion that the senior center budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $89,409.
second,
And reduction due to building maintenance, reduction of $1,151 from last year. Any other discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Big one.
Motion that the Department of Public Works Operations and Maintenance budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $7,547,787.
second,
Okay, that was a increase of $520,000. Most of that from payroll with our contractual settlements. Any other discussions? All in favor? Oh, Diane.
Aye.
Diane's coughing, so hold on.
I had a note here that at final review, we're gonna look at the Green Master Triplex three-wheel kit for $32.50. That's a note that I had, that was gonna be a discussion item. Bring it up.
Let me see, it's,
Is there anyone here? Have Jeremy Lennon.
let's see, who's here? Jeremy online? There he is. I'm gonna put Jeremy on as a panelist. Yeah, Jeremy, can you hear us? He's rejoining as a panelist.
Green Master
Yeah.
Triplex.
Hey, Jeremy, you there?
Have Jim Stewart.
I'll do Jim Stewart next.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yeah, Jeremy, go ahead.
I had trouble connecting. Yeah, we spoke with Joe. That was for the golf course on that. He was away at the time. It's a piece of equipment they needed for greens cutting in their replacement, in their rotation.
How desperately do they need this, Jeremy?
I think to keep up with their rotation and the yearly transfer of equipment, it's a good thing to keep going with.
Hey, Diane, what was that line item again?
Green Master Triplex three, and I put WD, so I'm assuming that's wheeled kit, $32.50. How I,
Jeremy, what is it cut? Greens or rough or what
Yeah,
is?
it's the greens from how Joe explains to me. If he was here, he could probably explain a little better. So they're top mowers they put on the greens, and then they rotate, they downgrade them to cutting around the greens and the tees. So that's to replace one on the green to keep kicking them down and rotating them in and out for the equipment list.
And then the one that this replaces is replacing another one?
It would probably be replacing a lesser model, maybe doing something else that they would put out to auction through the finance department. One that's not cutting greens currently.
That answer your question, Diane?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
Here it is.
okay,
Yeah, it's on page 9 of 14.
okay. Well, that's from the original present.
Yeah, the
original-
original presentation.
Okay. Any other discussion on Public Works?
Is that in here?
That is,
It's here, but I don't know about.
it's not, I don't see it listed in the line item up here. Unless it comes in under capital. It might be under Hopper Golf Course capital outlay of 7850.
Probably,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's about where it's located. In. Okay. Any discussion on Public Works? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, Diane's opposed. Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
Motion that the engineering department budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $408,472.
I'll second.
Second, okay. Okay,
Got
two increases in that was one regular payroll and then an increase of $12,000 in environmental testing and compliance. Overall increase of $27,734. Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the debt service budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $14,587,099.
Second.
Okay, and that's a reduction of 107,000 from last year. Any discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the pensions budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $3,681,964.
Second.
And that is an overall increase of $342,000 into the contribution employees pension fund. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the insurance budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $16,262,933.
Second.
And that's an increase of $1,480,000, $960,000 that in medical insurance. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the community services budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $1,887,977.
Second.
See, this encompasses quite a bit of agencies, nonprofit and non-affiliated with town. Total increase of $19,614. Any discussions, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the general budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $100,500.
Second.
It's flat funded from last year. 3 items in that budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion that the reserve fund budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $2,688,417.
Second.
And that's a reduction of 87,987 from last year. Any discussion? I mean, this is the money that funds the capital projects. All in favor?
Well,
Aye.
just to clarify, it would have gone up 200 and something
Yes, it would have.
thousand, or now it's going down
Going
87
down, so we went up and down.
because of the 300,000 taken out.
Okay, so
So I'd like to talk about some additional items that could potentially be coming out.
you talk about for capital?
Mhm.
Okay, we're not,
How about
That-
the Cody Work?
no, we just did the reserve fund. Now we're gonna go into capital. Okay, so the reserve fund funds the capital, then we'll do capital. Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And our last item.
The Board of Ed?
Yeah, so let's go back.
And I
I
have
think
continued
Diane
here.
was right that if you want to talk about capital, that's the point to talk
Okay.
about.
So you want to go to capital now, then come back to Board of Ed?
We'll go back to capital. If you want to say something,
We can do Board of Ed and then go to capital, it doesn't
well,
matter.
we already approved capital.
That's why we I'm saying.
I know, but that's why I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
said that you were actually right, so.
So if we make changes to capital, we can go back and change that. But that's the total amount that's funded towards capital. I know it's kind of mixed up.
I have a number here for contingency.
There is no, it's been carried here.
It's already in the
Gotcha.
capital reserve.
That
think-
motion is not you.
Yeah, she thinks she did that last year. It's actually not funny.
Do we have to address it since it's on the
Nope.
agenda? Motion that the Board of Education budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $142,261,275. That is my
No,
68.
Yeah.
Retract the motion. That
Chris
was
is smiling.
You just funded 2 towns.
Chris is
Try
voting.
that again, Marangi. Here we go.
Approaching effective.
Voted yes.
Where's the new school going, Chris?
Tried to sneak it in. All right, so here we go, sorry. A motion that the Board of Education budget be accepted as presented in the amount of $68,785,698.
Okay, second. Again, this is an increase of, as the mayor pointed out, $1.6 million. We're still waiting for some funding answers from state. Discussion.
So we should really vote on this one at the adoption
Yes.
day.
That was the final number then.
Well, things change, yeah.
This is our snapshot for tonight. Okay. Any discussion, questions?
Question,
Oh, question. Who's got? Bob Nuth. Go ahead, Bob.
regarding the Board of Ed budget. Concerns regarding, 2 positions that are there. One is the, DEI director's position, which I think can be eliminated, for the fact that, most of your companies, corporations are starting to get rid of the DEI position, number one, and it's not cheap. It's $164,000. I'm not sure if they get benefits or not. The other one is the curriculum director. Is that a position that's needed for the fact that we can get all our information on curriculum from the state of Connecticut? And that's a $170,000 position. I think those are 2 major items that should be addressed or looked at, number one. Number 2, has there been a thought process in a shared services for purchasing between the town and the Board of Education, where we can eliminate a salary on one side or the other? And my last issue, and it's a big issue, which I believe that we continue to have a blind eye of this particular issue, and that's the bullying issue. I bring it up every single year, and I don't see it getting any better. And I actually see a lot of things getting worse. At what point are we going to really sit down and talk about this particular item, number one? Because if we don't, I can almost see somebody suing the town over this issue. And it's not going to sit well, not with me anyways, or the town, when we have to pay a large amount of money over something that should be addressed. Thank you.
Want me to respond?
Yes, please.
All right, I'm gonna respond first to the shared services, and then I think it would be best to let Chris respond to the other 2 if you want to.
That's fine.
So on shared services, I'm certainly not against it, but on the borough side, we need our own person. I can tell you that. I don't know about on their side, but we need someone. Now, working together on our side with the Board of Ed, I'm all in favor of that. And I think we could do that. I don't really know if that would wind up saving money on the Board of Ed side. But we've tried to do it before. It never really worked. Purchasing is there's a lot of moving parts to purchasing. Every department has nuances, specialties, and it's a pretty complicated job on the town side. On the Board of Ed side, I'm not so sure. On DEI and bullying, from a budgetary standpoint, I don't know, I don't think there's anything we can do about bullying. It's totally on the Board of Ed side. And I'll let Chris or Melissa respond if they so choose. On DEI, I'll just say that that position does help the town in getting funding for grants. Most grants are based in part on disadvantaged communities and working with people and groups who need help. And almost every grant that we apply for with the state of Connecticut, some of the boxes you have to check off deal with DEI. So it is important financially to the town. Now, having said that, I'll let Chris, if you'd like to speak on DEI or bullying.
If I don't recall all of your enumerated items, the short answer to the first two are yes, we need both DEI director position and curriculum director. Not all curriculum is provided from the State Department of Education. Curricula includes every standard, every lesson, and every subject from pre-K through grade 12. We're working to create new programs, we're working to have a fire program, manufacturing, partnering with Griffin, partnering with construction companies, looking to provide, because the state changed the kindergarten age, free preschool to those that for some students this year up to 2 classes. Curricula, we need more than one curriculum position. So as Naugatuck as a community, in terms of staffing, is not overstaffed. I shared slides with the Board of Education in terms of comps that compared to Alliance districts, we are in the lower third of staffing. So in 1929, there might have been a perception that we were spending too much on education. And I'm sorry to see that perhaps that still exists today, now when education is needed more than ever. But in reality, the reductions that are being made already, it's not lost on me that we find ourselves in difficult economic times, and that the tax burden on those who pay taxes, including my mother, is high. And there's a reeval, and I understand that there's only so much money. But the 1.6 million covers just the health insurance, really, from what we're asking. You have a $1.4 million health insurance. Ours was $988,000. We reduced, just to get to this point, we already reduced 12 teaching positions. We were reducing other items. So in terms of curriculum, I wish I had more supervisors like other districts, even Ansonia, who have more than one curriculum person at a lesser rate, but one to supervise different subjects. And I can tell you with 100% confidence, do not turn a blind eye to bullying. Bullying exists. If we were to believe everything that we read on social media, that really wouldn't be a terribly responsible of us. It's one-sided. We cannot communicate fully. I deal with it. I'm dealing with it now. I'm sure lots of you have seen posts recently. Before the post went up, I was on the phone with both families, with the schools. Fact of the matter is that when you have 4,300 students and they have families, that some students are going to make bad choices. And we have to put forth the resources. We have the best teachers in the world. We have amazing principals. We have great schools. And most of the things that happen every single day are wonderful. But there's going to be time where bullying happens. We don't turn a blind eye to it. We hold it accountable. Have we been able to extinguish it? No, we've not been able to extinguish bullying. I wish we could, amongst other things like crime and poverty. But growing up, it's sort of developmental, where you feel better sometimes when you tease somebody else because there's a lot going on with you in mental health, and that's why you likely at some point in your life were teased and broken. But now we can get on social media and we can say it out to the world, and then it grows and grows and grows, and people start believing it and sometimes perpetuating false narratives. So we investigate bullying, we hold folks accountable, Right now, there's a lot going on about elementary school involving an 8-year-old. You know what? An 8-year-old, we're holding an 8-year-old accountable the way we need to hold an 8-year-old accountable in working with families. We would engage in shared services. We have a budget with a lot of purchasing too. But I'm always open to collaborate with Mayor Hess on virtually anything any idea that he has for the betterment of Naugatuck communities. So if that's not the shared service, then if there's another one, we're open to having that conversation. DEI, we have a community that has changed. We have a community that has changed, and the school community that I see, and the community in which that I engage all the time, perhaps not the same community that you're always engaging with. There is the need for increased inclusivity, understanding, and approaches to what has been an increasing diverse student body. So when we sometimes will tell stories about, well, in '93, I could name, the 5 or 6 students of color that I graduated with. Now we're 60% diverse. So it's a position that's needed. So is curricula. Bullying, my guy. Thank you. I spoke too much and too long, given the opportunity today. I do want to thank you all for your support over the years, and your giving freely your time in support of students and families and taxpayers. Happy to answer any other questions.
Can I just add on your question about the DEI?
Yep.
So I understand the need as far as the grant purpose as well as tax change, we know that.
Sure.
Is it a position that can potentially be reduced down? That's a really high,
In the long term, there is a plan
okay.
that I will pitch to the Board of Education. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Yes.
I'd also like to mention that we are moving more for some of the shared services, for example, purchasing. The contract that I entered into my budget also includes the high school generator. And by combining those services, there might not be a reduction in, FTEs, but there's a reduction in the cost associated with these services as we get more and more contracts in the future where we share them with the Board of Ed. We could see further reductions of that kind. And I think that part of the shared services is going to work. I advocate for many years of shared services, especially purchasing. Being in my former life, I was a purchasing manager, and that's sort of my baby. But I believe that the more we unify as far as getting some, we could get our paper towels from the same place. We get our toilet tissue from our clinics. There's a lot of things you could do. So it's all it's going to work on both our parts to get to that point. And it extends far beyond those items. But I think a little bit.
Okay, good. I have one question online. Elma, are you still on?
What's that?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to support Chris with the DEI issue, but I wanted to ask if it's any way that the person who talked about DEI and bullying, if when the Board of Ed looks at both, they could include whatever bullying mediation into DEI, because people are bullied because they don't feel included, or they bully because they don't feel they want to exclude. So it takes everything in.
I think it's directed to you, Chris.
Yes, of course, we can involve those in the conversation, communicate out widely approaches and things that we're doing.
Okay, Elma, that was Chris Montini, the superintendent. Did that answer your question?
Also,
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah, well, I like your suggestion, and I think what you're saying is that in a bullying situation, even if it's not a clear-cut black versus white situation, at some level, it's related to things that could relate to inclusivity. So that, to me, Mrs. Solomon is right. There's a connection between the two that maybe should be, I would say, explored.
I'll give you a real quick, very quick, situation. So our DEI director is working with the Y. We recently had a situation in the last week. You have one student who says to another student, talking about a younger student, puts her hands up, says, I can't be friends with you because, you know, you're a different color. So, mediating and having conversations that could take place in our community right here at the Y, right? So they're my students, they're your students, they're all of our students, these are our Naugatuck students, right? Is it, it's a little kid, they don't know, they know what they hear, they know this, so yes, that's just one little example of working across what could be considered teasing that could get legs, but that we're gonna mediate and assist in with the Y, just like in terms of our DEI director would go and support our police department if things can go wrong in, you know, one of the most scrutinized professions, you know, everything's on a body camera, can assist the police department too. That's collaboration, shared service.
Okay, good. Thank you, Chris. So do we vote on the board budget?
No.
Okay, so we have motion on the floor, seconded for the Board of Education as presented. Any other questions or discussion? Diane, you all set? I thought you had a question. Nope. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Opposed.
carried.
Opposed.
Opposed, who do you have, Bob? And Dorothy opposed.
I oppose too.
Mike Bronco also opposes. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Nancy, you have those?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Okay, our next item is capital.
You know, if you want, I mean, instead of reopening it, we can just do it at the final adoption. The only question that I have, and Mayor, if you can, or me, Allison look into it. Last week, somebody was talking about, because we have set aside Salem School playground for like, let me see here. Salem Park improvements, $50,000. So if there's thought that may or may not go through, that they may be dismantling Salem Park, then can we table that until a final decision is made? And that's something we can talk about.
Let me just tell you what happened. So I go to several of the schools often, but Salem and Hillside, I'm assigned as their liaison. And they're right next to us, and I go over there. And I had a meeting with the principal and several teachers and a whole bunch of cool students. And I learned for the first time that Salem kids were not allowed to go on the playscape, and that they had been asking for a playscape and things like that for years, and that they were denied. And I felt it was wrong, and I promised them that I would get them a playscape. Now, when I promise something, I'm gonna fight to the death to make sure it's gonna happen, so you're wasting your time if you wanna fight it. But I agree with you in the sense that it shouldn't be in the budget in that spot. But I told them I will support it, and I will.
So it's not.
And by the way, it's transferable, and when the school is no longer there, it can go to another location.
So we're not talking about what's out there now.
What's out there now is a separate issue that needs, that also needs to be replaced, but that's a much bigger ticket item.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So that 50,000 is really for the school, not what's there now.
It's for Salem School.
I misunderstood that. Okay,
I believe that's going on the right-hand side of the school by the park.
Yes.
yeah.
So Diane, that playscape we're talking about is going on the right-hand side by Horseshoe Park.
Okay, see, that
So,
was confused.
yeah.
I thought. what
It's
was
not
in
the old
bud-
playground.
what was in the budget.
The little
we
kids.
could do-
The little kids broke me down.
Yeah.
So they can do that.
No, my
We
daughter.
wanted that in the main
No.
hill one, and their place gave you
Yeah.
help.
My daughter used to teach there, so I know that was a huge issue, okay? What I'm saying is what I thought was in the budget was for what's there now.
Yeah, no.
Okay, then I'm fine.
Okay, good, thanks, Ed.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to?
I think I got a question.
Okay, question, who's got it?
Kim Gallo had her hand up.
Oh.
But everyone else-
Kim, did you have a question?
I did. I wonder why a playground that happens to be in the vicinity of a school would be a part of a school budget when it essentially is a town property. And school functions, those school fields and playgrounds and so forth are, they're used by the public, they're expected to be used by the public, and the public expects them to be a town function. And I think we set ourselves up for a tough situation when we say that it should be a part of the school budget when they're trying to run curricula and
It's not, it's,
and
it's
deal
it's
with
not part of,
serious
Kim, it's not part of the school budget. I put it in the town budget.
But I've heard I've heard it said at least twice, if not three times, that it should be in the school budget. And I don't think so. I think,
Well, let's say this, there's a distinction between the playground right on school grounds
Yep.
and when, like Salem School, where when school's not in session, it's also on a town playground. So
Mhm.
there's different types of playgrounds. Like
Yep.
Linden Park is clearly a town playground. Up at, say Maple Hill School, the playscape is on school property. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some that are school, there's some that are town, and there's some that are in the twilight zone. So you're
well, I
right,
think
but they're
I
all
think
different.
I agree, but I think we've done a good job in other budgets of moving a lot of these big ticket items that the public enjoys and saying, okay, we're gonna put them into the maintenance budget for the town, or we're gonna put them into special projects budgets in the town, so that those projects get the attention that they need, and they're not detracting from, say, the work of the police, or the work of other ones. Police came to my mind first, so I apologize. But, I think that's a good idea because I don't want police deciding between renovating their building and getting bulletproof vests. And I feel the same way about schools. I think their major function is not to run things that are enjoyed by the whole town. I think it's to run the curriculum. It's to run programs for students and so forth. And I just want to make that comment. I realize that the Salem one is not a part of the school budget, but I've heard it said numerous times that it should be. And I think that's moving in the wrong direction when we've moved in the right direction in other areas. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, Kim, thank you. Okay, so for capital, you want
Can I read that for you?
to read the dollar amount and then we can go by the details.
So I go, motion that the capital reserve request be accepted as presented in the amount of $2,688,417.
Diane, you're up.
Second,
Okay, okay, that is actually from what was presented last week is actually a reduction of $348,000. A little better than that.
348.
348 reduction from what was proposed last week. You want to highlight the changes?
Well, I did already highlighted them at
Yeah,
the
they're all-
beginning,
Yeah, but
but I might have missed 48 because I thought I highlighted 300.
let's
but
say,
Ask Allison if she knows the difference.
did I add, did I subtract wrong?
I don't know.
Let's find out again. 036, 29, I get 348, 412.
So, I mean, I'm good with the additional 48,
Mhm.
but I don't really know where it is, so maybe I'm not. So
Okay.
let's ask Allison.
Hey, Allison, you still there?
Yes.
Of course, you're still there. So the question came up on the capital budget. I'm looking at a reduction from what was presented last week of $348,412.
So the question is, at least I know about 300 What's the additional 48?
We took 66,000 out, remember, for,
East Side Fire Station.
thank you. And we added the 5-year lease, the
Okay, well, hold
10
on, we did those things before we took out the 300. So if you're just lumping them all together, the 348 is probably right, but at least what I did in the last week was cut out 300, and I think the other things we did prior to that.
it is the 66 though, and then we added like 38 for the 10-wheeler that burned up. 30,388. We're replacing the 10-wheeler. The insurance is 78,000 and the balance is a 5-year lease.
Right. So we did those, or at least we decided we were gonna do those at the meeting before I took out the extra 300. So the
Correct.
348 sounds correct.
Sounds correct, okay. Okay, thank you, Allison. Any discussion, comments on capital? Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion carries.
And motion carries.
So what did we take out tonight? What's new, like 10 grand or something?
You got 5,500 for emergency management. And
What?
so what's good? And the other reduction was,
There's a proposed reduction, but we didn't
we didn't do it.
do it. We're gonna wait and see what happens. to public
We're
hearing.
doing 55.
Are we good?
Very good. Thank you,
All
Charlie.
right.
Awesome job, Charlie.
Have a motion to,
So our next meeting is adoption.
Okay, our next meeting
Public
actually is,
Public hearing, public
okay,
hearing.
so let me tell you, public hearing is the 13th,
Where?
high school, at the Board of Ed,
So it's gonna be not in the gym, but in the room that.
the room we did last year. Okay, so actually, so just, we have 2 more meetings. The budget will be published on the week of the 6th. We have our public hearing at the Board of Ed conference room, meeting room on the 13th. And 2 days after that, on the 15th, joint boards will convene again to take any suggestions, recommendations from the hearing, and finally adopt the budget. After that, the borough board will accept the mill rate. Okay,
Sorry, Charlie, just.
no,
wanted
it's
to
all
make sure.
good.
no, that's it. So we have 2 more
You're in the
meetings.
right place, right?
Yes. Yeah, we'll do joint.
What is that?
That'll be on the 15th.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn the special meeting at
7:48.
7:48.
Nice job, everybody. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't have to wake her up for that one.
That was good. That was good.